G'day, hi, and welcome. My eyebrows. Wait, slinky. Can I do? You ever see someone do like one eyebrow and the other? I can't do that. I can only do both. They only work at the same time. Anyway, yeah, there's my dog. Dad put up Christmas lights. That's a bang up job. Looks good. Yeah, the snow went away. It was really mild the other day, and then the past couple of days has been super crazy windy. Last night was the first night the power didn't go out, so got lucky. Sticks all over the yard, sticks all over my trucks, and it's about -4. Really damp. I was going to start pulling the bike apart today and see if I can get the throttle body off the black truck. I don't know if you guys can see it. That's my uncle's old truck there. Well, both of those trucks were my uncle's. There's Freddie over there, the big red road beast. There's Buck, my tribute truck to my uncle, passed away. And then, of course, we got Brutus here. Took him out for a little bit of a ride yesterday. Had a little job to do. And, of course, there was a tree down across the road. So I had to use my superhuman strength and my good looks to move that tree. And it was a big tree. However, it was dead and rotten, so it didn't matter. I was able to karate chop it and bust it up to get off the road. But that was just from all the wind, so I don't know where my dad's at. Ran away. Although I should be up in my music room doing this. I'm going to really change it up. Maybe people like this video, maybe they won't. You guys know I kind of got a bit of a variety channel on the Professional Canadian Beatboxer channel. Anyway. But I'm like, one thing about BitChute, first, check out my hat. One thing about BitChute is they don't have the normie segment of BitChute. Meaning, they don't have the makeup girls on there yet. Coming in. Hey, my girl. That's a good girl. Yeah, it's too cold up there. Woo! Dogs are cold. I'm not touching you, you're cold. Freezing. Okay, I'll pet you a little bit. You're all cold. Dog's all freezing. Funny, that dog should lie outside. Doesn't matter what temperature it is. My other dog, Chevy, the old lughead, I miss him. He was such a... Well, he was a horrible dog, actually. He was just an idiot because he was, partially retarded. Like, he literally was. He had brain damage at birth. And he had no boundaries. And he was just like this big, blob of fur. Coley, and he was very lovable, but he was so stupid. And he just he'd be eating something, and then he loved coffee. My mom or dad would be sitting there, and they'd turn their head for 2 seconds, and he'd have his nose in the coffee, and just drink the whole thing. Kind of like, thanks, talk to you later. And he was just like stuff like that. He was like a Marmaduke kind of dog, right? He was always into something. But yeah, he'd go out and be -40. He'd sleep in the snowbank, and he'd call him to come in, and it's like, he wouldn't come in, and he'd be like, well, maybe we'll find him frozen in the snowbank tomorrow. Get up, yeah, come in, dry off a little bit, and go back outside, and you just sleep in the snowbank. Like, I never seen a dog like that. Like this dog, it didn't matter how cold it was, mind you, his fur was really thick. Summertime, it'd take me 3 days just to shave him down so he wouldn't die of the heat. Poor guy. But he was a fun dog. He was. I do miss him. He was my dog. He was, yeah. Yeah, dogs are good people, but yeah, he was quite the character though. Yeah, he just he'd be sitting there I'd be lying on the couch, and he'd get on the couch, and he'd try to push you off the couch with his butt. Just like he had to have the whole couch to himself. Like he was, and it's the way he'd do it too. He'd start off with one hand, and then he'd move his butt, you'd hit your foot, and you'd wait, then you'd kind of just hold your foot kind of solid. You'd feel every couple of minutes he'd start to kind of push you back a bit there, just see how far before you know he's at the other end of the couch. And he tried to do it so you wouldn't notice, eh? It's like we did. Yeah, he was a good dog. Anyway, but yeah, there's no makeup girl segments, normie segments on BitChute and stuff like that. And I want to have a bit of a music discussion today because I'm looking at all kinds of stuff. I'm kind of rearranging how I'm going to record things, and I'm definitely my next big purchase is going to be a drum kit. I wanted a 7-string guitar, the Mark Holcomb guitar, but it's just way out of my price range. I can't swing that right now. And I can't get anything till January anyway. I have a little bit of work in January, so That'll probably finance it a little bit. The credit card will finance the rest of it. I don't care if I have to pay for things for a while. But I want the drum kit because the electronic drums built in my recording studio that I bought in 2006. It's a BR1200. This thing's incredible. Like, it's an incredible machine. It's getting a bit dated for the sound effects and stuff like that, but it still could produce, like, anything you hear me record and release on, that's what it's recorded on. Now, I'm not a sound engineer, so, you know, I've got a long way to go to get, like, really get the maximum out of that machine. But I've read the manual a million times, and figuring out the drums, like, you can get the drum beats to go, but to compose a song is a total different thing, and I don't think it can be done. Like, I thought you could just, like, take this drum section part, and then for so many bars, put a fill, and then put this, and I don't think you can do it with the BR1200. So, and even if you could, the time it would take you to freaking program this out, it's just easier to get my mic, put it in front of a drum kit, and play. Now, am I a drummer? Well, yes and no. I'm a multi-instrumentalist, right? So one of the things that, you know, especially going forward in the so-called new world, that I recommend is people, you know, like, especially those of you with kids, small kids, start learning about instruments and getting them into it. I don't even care where you start. If you want to start with a cheap $10 recorder, start there. But try to get them into a discipline of music. Ukulele is a great place to start for a lot of kids because it's small, it's easy for them to play. I try to give a lesson. My nephew still hasn't quite taken to it yet, but, you know, he's going to learn how. He's going to be, by the time he's 16, he's going to be serenading the girls with a guitar. There's no doubt about that. Kind of like what I did. You know what I mean? Yeah, he's going to know how to play instruments just because, you know, he can't come up here and not see it. You know what I mean? Like, he can't come up here and not be around a musician. You know what I mean? Okay, I'm the only musician in the house, but, you know, it's just going to rub off, right? So the idea is to get him passionate about it. So creative arts, the problem in the new world is that the creative arts are degenerate right now. Like, they're really, and I don't like to use the word degenerate too loosely because it becomes a buzzword and then everything's degeneracy. Not even everything vulgar is degenerate. It's really got to look at things kind of in context, right? So the problem is the arts are dominated by the radical left. There's no doubt about that. But even so, there's a lot of right-wing musicians. In fact, you know, like, you're starting to find them now because the people coming out of the woodwork of, you know, their biases or whatever. Yeah, there's a belief out there that the left wing is more creative. And I'm like, they're really not. There's as many right-wing guitar players as there is left-wing guitar players, so to speak. It's just Hollywood promotes the leftist agenda. You know, the media in general, the arts in general, you know, take the leftist agenda approach to just about everything. So I thought someone was coming up the road. So it appears that the left is more creative, but they're really not. If I see someone that rides a motorcycle, plays guitar, draws, everything like that, flies airplanes, let's say they do all that thing, chances are they're probably going to be on the right, all right? Because all that stuff requires, you know, a little bit of discipline to acquire, right? So it's not uncommon for me. Sorry, I just got some Christmas candies there. It's not uncommon for me to run in, like, I think of all my guitar player friends, they're not left wing. You know what I mean. They're not left wing at all. Like they're all pretty right wing. So I'm like, okay, there's a lot of creativity on the right. Now the music industry is basically, no matter how far back you go, always kind of promotes rebellion and degeneracy, right? Whether it was 80s glam metal, sleaze metal, that kind of stuff, love them and leave them kind of promotion, or if we're talking rap, hip hop, gangster rap, and cop killing music or whatever, it's always something negative that they promote. Country music is usually the opposite, but even if that has like a lot of the promiscuity from the, like the Shania Twain stuff. Yeah, sure, she's a lovely lady, a lot of talent, but like the kind of like empowered woman stuff is always anti-male, right? It's male bashing. It's very subtle, so it's whatever. But and again, most of these female artists will have those kind of like male bashing songs, and guys just really don't listen to that at all. Like it's like they don't, right? But then you get the opposite where they write a love song and it's really sweet and it's tender and it's very right hand path, family nation future kind of stuff. Most of the male country singers are right wing. I'm sure some of them are left wing, but most of them are right wing. There's no doubt about that. What about jazz and stuff? Well, jazz, I don't know. I think jazz is gonna probably, like anything, it's gonna be all over the map, right? It's like, it's just, what are we playing? Everything. So, what are your political beliefs? Everything. It's like, it's jazz, right? Blues. The blues, I don't know. I would say blues players are probably, if they're like, I'm assuming most people are apolitical anyway, but in this crazy world, if they're going to fall down on a bias, they're probably going to be more right wing than not. Metalheads, I think most of them are going to be non-biased, but if they do fall down politically, they're probably going to be more on the right, just because. Well, it depends on like Marilyn Manson. Like I wouldn't call him right wing. You know what I mean? A right hand path. But in general, I think most of them would probably go more towards the right. And I know it's a bit of a bold claim to say that it's probably the opposite of what we've been taught, but just going by the people, like every metal band I've ever played in, they were like working class guys. Working class guys typically aren't left wing. If their hands get dirty, they're usually not left wing, right? So they done drywall all day, then they go out and play a gig. Trust me, I can tell you, they're probably going to be socially liberal and fiscally conservative. The cliche. You know what I mean? I'm not as socially liberal as I used to be. I'm not as libertarian as I used to be because I do see the harm in certain things. I do see the harm in the left-hand path, versus the right-hand path. I'm not necessarily political or whatever, but anyway. So I'm like, okay, but we don't really have our rock stars, our country stars, like something that really pertains to the right-hand path. And I've been writing a lot of songs. And I've got songs right back from like 1992 that I'm going to re-release and stuff like that. And just mainly it's two of them. But I've got a whole bunch of songs that I'm ready to record. I just reset up my 12 string for the first time. I've had it since March. I've changed the strings for the first time since March. I adjusted the bridge, so I'm pretty much ready to record with that. And that album is going to be basically me and the guitar, and that's it. I'm going to keep it as simple as I can. It'll be 10 tunes. I've already got a couple of the tunes written out anyway. And I'm going to release that. Hopefully, I don't want to put a time limit on it, but I'll say probably somewhere end of January, somewhere in February, March at the latest. Now, I want to do full band stuff, instrumentals, etc., etc., and I'm trying to find a way to do a home recording studio without getting into all kinds of, digital stuff. I know there's an advantage to that where you just plug your guitar in and you just play along with the track and stuff like that. But I like playing instruments. I don't want to program drums. I want to play the drums. I don't want to program the bass. I want to play the bass. Same with the guitar. I'm a huge fan of live music. For me, I just want a better way to give you live music. Is really what I think I'm trying to accomplish. In all honesty, problem is I can only play one instrument at a time and sing. You know what I mean? So my tools are very like I'm looking at other people's their home recording studios, and it gets to the point where it gets overwhelming because it's just like, okay, here's how you do it on the cheap. It'll only cost you $15,000. You know what I mean? And it doesn't have to cost that much. You know what I mean? So when it comes to the drums, for example, electronic drums versus acoustic drums. Well, the acoustic drums, the bass kits start out about the same money, around the $400+ range to $600 range for the basic kits. You say, well, buy them used. Well, buying drum equipment used is one thing is I know what to look for. And almost every kit that you're going to find for like $200 or $300 needs all new skins. So it's going to sound like shit right away. You know what I mean? Like it's good. You'll probably be able to play it and learn on it, but to record with it, even if you're like say Pearl Exports, probably the most numerous drum kit ever built, and probably the drum kit I've played the most. Although I don't have a lot of drumming experience, you know, I could probably count on my hands and toes the amount of times I've played. Well, maybe not. Okay, I've played the drums. Okay, and I'll just give you kind of a rundown of what I'm at. Okay, so I start playing guitar at 5, take it up kind of seriously by 10, and by 13 I have my first electric guitar, and at 48, and I've been playing guitar, you know, nonstop, with the exception of 3 years where I kind of was just working night shift and all that, and I just didn't pick up my guitar for like 2 years, or 3 years, or 2 years I think it was. Whatever it was anyway. And I remember I saw my Les Paul sitting in the corner, and it was all full of dust and everything. I'm just like, I better dust it. I dusted it off and it was out of tune, so I thought, well, I better tune it. So I tuned it, and then there happened to be nobody home. I was, you know, doing shared accommodation at that time, renting a room. Nobody home, and I thought, well, while I'm at it, might as well, you know, I had the day off. I'm going to plug it in. So I plugged it in, and I played for like 3 hours straight. And I'm like, and it just like, it took my life from, you know, here's the bleak, you know, working day to day, 2-3 jobs at the same time, you know, poor as anything, recession in the 90s, right? You've heard me talk about that, you know, endlessly. And whatever. And then all of a sudden I was alive again. It reminded me my last gig. It reminded me, you know, like the music brought back my life. You know what I mean? And I said, never again will I ever not play the guitar for that long of a period. And I force myself, and if you're a guitar player or whatever, say you wake up in the morning and it's all quiet. You don't have to plug things in. Just grab the guitar, electric guitar, acoustic guitar, whatever. And just, even if you play the acoustic guitar without a pick, just with your thumb, really lightly, just do a couple of chords on for about 5 minutes. Don't care what you play. Don't care what you play. Just play for about 5 minutes before you go to work. Watch what it does for your day. Over time, it just keeps the fever going. You know what I mean? You can do the same with the electric guitar. You don't play it in the morning. I used to do that before work every morning. Okay, got everything done. Have to leave in about 5 minutes. Okay, grab the guitar for that 5 minutes. Everything's ready to go. Wake up in the morning. Your morning routine, it's like you rush to get everything done so you can play the guitar for that 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Maybe you play one song. Maybe you play just a couple of chords. Maybe a scale. Whatever it is. You just pick it up and you play it. And the rest of the day, you're like, I'm accomplished. Now, as soon as you get time, you know, like I'll sit there for 3 hours playing and singing and stuff like that. You know, like a couple of times a week. Whenever my dad leaves the house, I grab the guitar. You know what I mean? I'll put off other things so I can do that. Why? Because life is short. And I mean, I don't put off everything. Obviously, I keep everything going. But I play every day almost. And sometimes, you know, I'll play like 5 minutes on the guitar, grab the violin for 5 minutes, grab this and grab something else for 5 minutes, and just keep it cycling. That way the music is always new because you're a multi-instrumentalist. So that's nice too, right? So I go back to high school is my first kind of really playing the drums. So I took 1 semester of music class, and I wasn't a very good student because I thought I was a know-it-all already. But I did learn some stuff in that music class, even though I was a bit of an asshole. I did. The teacher was a bit of an asshole, but in hindsight, when we finally, when we were like oil and water, Mr. Ridgway and I were like oil and water until we came to an understanding of music, and it was a bizarre way it happened. I brought my electric guitar to school. I made 1,200 kids late for class standing on my amp. Uh, you know, playing like the half of song, like half an for those about to rock, half of that, doing like a solo and everything, like like rock you like a hurricane, all this stuff I still play today. I mean, all that 80s metal and stuff like that, and the kids loved it, right? But I was standing on my 50-watt trainer amp with my 1968 Harmony Rocket, like looked like an ES330, like a Chuck Berry guitar, sitting on there playing Johnny Be Good, playing this, playing that, right? Principal came along and pulled the plug out. Okay, everybody back to their class, whatever. And Mr. Ridgway saw me, and he goes, Reg, he goes, you got those great Ted Nugent chops. He goes, they're here. But he goes, your timing sucks. He says, if you want to learn something about music, he says, come meet me on your next break in the music room, right? So this was just a little bit after I was done the course of the music course, right? I wasn't allowed to, I wanted to keep taking it, but they wanted you to take a different course each time. And I explained to the the teacher, I said, look, I'm already a musician. I can benefit from this. I'm not going to benefit from the sewing class the same way I'm going to benefit from the music class, right? But we had to take four different semesters. We had to take 4 different things. So half the semester I played the electric bass, the other half I played the drums. So that was my introduction to reading sheet music and stuff like that too. So not only was I learning how to read music, which I could still do, but I'm like really rusty at it. If you don't practice it, it takes me about a week to sight read music again. It's just I don't practice it. With the violin, I force myself to learn off of sheet music. But most of the time I just learn by ear, right? So anyway, I get the basics of the drums and stuff like that, but it was the problem with the high school band stuff is, like, the teacher can't really spend a full, like, it's okay, this is how you play the saxophone, this is how you play the trumpet. And he had this stupid trumpet that he was always playing. This is how you play the piano. And I did almost all my ear training on the piano, and and I was probably like one of about 4 out of the 30 kids in the class. I was probably about one of 4 that actually had perfect pitch, but I'd already had the advantage of being a guitar player. But my timing did suck. It sucked really bad. I wasn't that bad of a drummer, but I was just, because, I was like 13, 14, whatever, 15, however old I was. I had a really good guitar. I had my, I had electric guitar. I was going to be like Steve Vai. I was going to be like Randy Rhoads, Eddie Van Halen, you name it, Vito Bratta, all those awesome guitar players, George Lynch. I was going to be like that, Yngwie, whatever. I was going to eventually be like that, and I was going to be the best lead guitar player in the world. The same delusions of grandeur every kid starts out with when they start guitar. So I learned guitar solos before I learned how to play the rhythms, because, okay, well, Slash is a cool guitar player. I want to do all the stuff Slash does, right? And so learn the guitar. I used to get this, it was a magazine called Guitar Player for the Practicing Musician, or Guitar for the Practicing Musician, I think that's what it was called. And I had a subscription to it, and every month you would get this magazine. It would have the latest and greatest of equipment. It would have interviews from all your favorite, like every second issue was a Steve Vai issue pretty much, or Joe Satriani. And Joe Satriani and Steve Vai they were heroes of mine, right? I mean, I still love their stuff. Joe Satriani, like, it's like you don't listen to him for a while, and then you watch some of his live stuff, and you're memorized by it. He's just so good. And I seen him live. I touched his toe because his pedal board was right here, and the stage was right here. It was he was right there, and I thought, like right on. And I was like, I touched Joe Satriani's toe. I will never wash this finger again. But I couldn't catch it. He kept trying to throw picks at me, but I couldn't catch them. And they kept going over my head, and they would bounce out of my hand. He was doing that, eh? But, I couldn't catch but it was a hell of a show. It's Stu Ham, Jonathan Mover. I remember the Jonathan Mover drum solo. He was the first drummer that, like, blew me away. Like, I saw Tommy Lee live, and that was cool, seeing him coming out over the crowd in that cage spinning upside down while he was playing his drum solo. That was cool. The cool factor has not been matched. But just technical ability, I think Jonathan Mover became my favorite drummer just by how technical he was. He was just so good, the nuances. And then Stu Ham, excellent bass player. Joe Satriani, obviously, enough said, right? So it was like Dream Team, and I guess they got the guitar tech to play the rhythm guitar off on the side of the stage. You don't see him at all, but I saw him there anyway. But anyway, it was a hell of an experience. But I just remember I could even still hear it in my head, just that thunder, and every time everyone put off a different light and the laser lights, and it was just so good. It was so good. And then it was Great White. The drum kit for that had like the seashell cage. It was like thing looked like a spaceship. It was really, really cool. And I really liked the drums when I was younger. And when I was just before I got into the music class and all that, and my encounterment with Mr. Ridgway, he pulled me into the class and he said, "Reg," he goes, "your chops are great. You got them here, you got them here. You're doing that Eddie Van Halen crazy stuff." He goes, "It's amazing." He goes, "Your timing sucks." So he sat me down. He goes, "You can tell me to fuck off or whatever. I'm just being honest with you." He goes, "But if you want to learn, let's go back to the fundamentals. You already know this. This is the staff. This is the staff. Here's the measure. Here's our notes, our whole notes or a quarter." And he just went from there. But he got me to play it. I think I played he goes, "Play me a rhythm pattern. I don't care what it is. You can plug in the amp, crank it up. Just play me a rhythm pattern." So I played, I think, like Seek and Destroy, like the ending part. Da-nat, da-nat, da-nat. But I was all over the place. He goes, no. He goes, "Follow this. Da-nat, da-nat, da-nat." And then I started to connect the timing with the beat, right? And I was like, fuck, he was right. That bearded, mustache twizzled, trumpet playing asshole was right. And I said, "Thank you, sir." And we got along from there. But unfortunately, I said, "Can I get you back in my class?" I said, "Can I get back? Can you put in a word for me and get me back in your class?" He's like, "Not a chance." I think he needed a little bit more healing time than I did. I was busting his chops all the time, right? But he was a good teacher. He was a really good music teacher in hindsight. And, I realized how much of an asshole I was. I mean, as soon as you hit 13, like 12, you're a sweet as a child. You hit 13, you're an asshole. Doesn't matter. It's science, right? And trust me, I didn't disappoint. But I did learn stuff from him. He'll probably never know that, but I did learn an awful lot. But it was him that kind of set me on to okay, maybe I got to focus on my rhythm and my timing. Because my timing is still, I'm very sloppy. But it's a lot of it is, you don't realize how bad your timing is until you start recording. That's when you're like, oh my God. It's like, okay, I'm going to record the guitar track first and then put a drum beat to it. And it's like, oh, it doesn't work that way. You know what I mean? So it's like, yeah, your timing gets really good over time, but if you learn bad techniques to begin with, your timing gets really. It sounds like it's dynamic at first, but it's just out of time. And then when you really clean up your timing, it's amazing how much tighter everything sounds, right? So timing was something I started to put a lot of effort on. And when I did, that's when I started becoming a better player. And in fact, I think I became a better rhythm player than a lead player. Also, having knowledge of the bass and the drums, even though only one semester. And then, of course, by that time, I was getting into my first high school bands and stuff like that. And we had these big, incredible jam sessions, and we'd lock the door and crank the amps up, and people would hear us. It was like 3-4 floors to the school. It was huge. And there was like 1,200 kids there, and they'd hear, we'd be at one end of the school, and they'd hear us playing Welcome to the Jungle at the other end of the school, until finally one day the principal put a kibosh to it, because we were just, they just didn't really appreciate the Mesa Boogie stacks the way I did. You know what I mean? Yeah, I used to bring my Mesa Boogie stack and all that onto the school bus, onto the city bus. It's amazing how we'd being high school kids, we'd bring drums from one end of the city to the other end of the city. It was just like, oh man, I forgot a drumstick on the damn bus. Yeah. Where's my hi-hats? Yeah. Be 5 of us, one guy carrying the bass drum, carrying toms and the amp, and the bus driver would be like, "What the fuck is going on here?" Oh yeah, be rush hour traffic. We'd be jamming all this music equipment through the people. Yeah, fuck them. They can't take a joke, right? But good times, like I wouldn't trade it for the world. But yeah, and then I got to jam with jazz players, and I always found the jazz drummers were the really good drummers. But there was a reason, because they weren't tone deaf, and most drummers, unfortunately, are tone deaf. They have no concept of music. They think it's just about power drumming all the time. And I didn't start out that way. I started out with the jazz playing, like the traditional, right? And that doesn't make me better, but it's just I wasn't, because of what I was playing. I was in like the class had like trombones and trumpets and saxophones and flutes and whatever. And if you were really bad, you delegated to the kettle drum for punishment, or the xylophone, which I sometimes got in trouble just to play the xylophone, because the girls thought it was cute. It's like ding 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 ding. Check out my hair. Ding 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 ding. And I like the xylophone. It was cool. Anyway, yeah. So it was like the power rock drumming wasn't where I started. I started out on like a piccolo snare and stuff like that. And, it was a 5-piece kit, and there was one tom or 2 toms and 1 floor tom and whatever. And I just remember drumming like this and whatever. And I was starting to get fat. And then I tried, one of my first band was called Fenris Wolf, which means werewolf. The drummer, he left the drum kit here for about a week, maybe a month. I don't remember how long it was here. And I know my mom and dad were annoyed enough as it was, me playing electric guitar at any volume I played it at. It's like Tom Emmanuel said, the guy that plays classical gas, phenomenal guitar player. He said it best: never let anybody hear you practice. He goes, they'll suicide you. He goes, because musicians learn, guitar players, drummers, whatever, we learn by repetition, right? Meaning we play the same thing over and over until we're like beyond sick of it. But that's when we get good. So when somebody sees a musician that's just phenomenal live, you got to understand that guitar solo that blew you away, he's played that 15,000 times, give or take. You know what I mean? Like it's been played that much. It's been played to death, to nauseum, to insanity. But that's how you learn. Now, some stuff you don't have to practice that hard at. Some stuff you do. You want to play Dragon Force, you're going to be practicing. A lot of practicing. Your skill level gets up, you're not going to have to practice it so much. You'll catch on to it, fairly quick. And that's the same with anything. So you can learn any instrument, piano, whatever. Piano, anytime I've found a piano, I know where there is a piano, I just don't know if I can get to it. And I'm going to try to see if I can sweet talk my aunt to let me in to say, I'll say, I'm going to want to look at that piano and see if I can tune it up. And I can't get it. We had organs here at one point, but like the old fashioned organs, but there's no room for them here. And getting a piano into the basement, 600-800 pound piano into the basement is not exactly a great place to put it. And there's no room up here for it. And I'm definitely not going to leave a piano out in the garage type of thing. I know people do that, but it's wood and moisture is not a good combination, and steel and moisture are not a good combination. So definitely don't want to be doing that. It'll wreck the piano. But I love the sound of a natural piano. I love acoustic instruments. I love playing the stand-up bass. That was fun. And I like playing the drums. I remember that they were here for, I had Steve's drum kit here for about a week or 2 weeks or whatever it was. So anytime my mom and dad would leave the house, I'd play the guitar as loud as I could, off the front step here, and they'd hear me in the neighboring town, literally. And I'd go up and I'd bang on the drums for a bit. And I got some basic beats down. But I didn't remember all the techniques. So that would be my drumming experience up to that point until I got into my 20s and I got into some, more bar bands, right? And I went through a lot of them. And then I met up with this drummer. I still have him on my Facebook. We don't talk much, but him and I have been through everything. Like, I mean, he wasn't only my drummer. He was like my best friend. He was my best friend at one point. You know what I mean? And I mean, between the motorbikes, the Harleys, the crashing, the trucks, all the shit we went through, the parties, surviving the parties, not dying, trying on the train track, trying to beat the train to get to his mom's place back in time for supper. The adventures him and I went through, it's like the stories, like the glory days stories go on forever, right? But I haven't seen him in years. But anyway, when I met him, it was just after I got back from LA, or just before I went to LA, and then we hooked up again just after I got back to LA. And ironically, I met his girlfriend first, and it was a really bizarre story. It was my going away party before I was going to go to LA, and I stayed there in '92 for a month, and I left the day of the Rodney King riots. How about that, right? And anyway, there was this really cute girl out at the bus stop in front of my house, and it was cold. It was wintertime, and my front door didn't work, so we got her. I said, yeah, come on in and warm up. It's too cold. The bus isn't coming for an hour. I called for her and everything like that, because we just felt bad because she was, damsel in distress, kind of like, it was like this, it was snowing sideways, right? And for some reason, she trusted us. She crawled through the window. She goes, why do I have to crawl through? I said, the front door's jammed. My sister and I would have to, because it was my sister's place, we would have to crawl in and out of the window until the landlord fixed the damn door. Anyway, we had this massive party and whatever. She was telling us her boyfriend played drums. And I was drunk, of course. So I'm playing my guitar in my underwear. It's one of those stories. There's beer all over the place. It was just, it's a story that, defies belief. But anyway, she forgot her mitts or her gloves or something at my place. And I don't know how I guess we gave her our numbers. Why? Again, we're a bunch of drunk guys, 18 years old, whatever. So we were assholes. But this sweet little girl, Nancy, she basically says, she comes back with this guy, and he's kind of hiding off into the corner. She goes, yeah, that's my boyfriend Scott, he plays drums. And I could tell right away, I was like, who is this guy? I said, oh, come on in, dude, come on in, come check out. I said, I'm moving out of here in a couple of days. I'm going to LA, and I'm gonna go to check out Music Institute where Paul Gilbert teaches, and all those like fancy musicians teach and stuff like that. And he's like, you're going to LA, man? And we hit it off. We just hit it off. Like, he was probably thinking, who is this guy making moves on my girl, right? But anyway, we all the three of us became really, really good friends. And I'd go over to Nancy's place. Her parents, like they knew I was like a starving student kind of thing, this guy works all these jobs, he's still poor, because the minimum wage was like $4 something an hour, and whatever, and work was kind of sparse, so I worked all these jobs. Nancy would invite me over for supper, and I go for supper, and their parents would just fucking stuff me full of whatever. Then we'd go and hang out in her pool. Scott would come along, and he'd bring his sticks, and then he's like, yeah, I gotta go tune my drums and stuff like that. I said, well, I'll go with you, you know what I mean? You need a hand. And so we'd work on his drum kit and stuff like that. And then his mom took a liking to me, so she's like, oh, come over for supper because you're fit. Like, I was 145 pounds at the time, right? 18, 19 years old. And it's like, oh, that kid's like, he's all like, she fed raccoons, right? His mom would feed raccoons because she felt bad for them. Well, she's like, well, whatever I don't give to the raccoons, you can have. You know what I mean? So there was a pecking order. I'm not going to deny that there was a pecking order, but I still got fed. You know what I mean? So it was like every other day. Reg, did you eat this week? It's like, yeah. Well, what did you eat? And she'd make me tell her what I had for supper, right? And it'd be like Mr. Noodle Packs and hot dogs and stuff like that. Okay, that's enough of that, dear. Come on over. And I'll be honest, his mom wasn't much of a cook, but it was the gesture, you know what I mean? Scott was like, he goes, if I have to eat this cooking, you have to eat it with me. If I'm going to suffer, you're going to suffer too. She wasn't that bad of a cook, but his sister was a better cook, whatever. But it was they took me in like a stray dog kind of thing. But Scott and I hit it off. We started jamming. Then we got into bands. We were in Reckless Angel was our first kind of band that held together. We did a bunch of gigs with them. It was great times. And then we were starting to get better on the equipment. But I mean, every time we had to take Scott's Pearl Exports drums, which was a regular 6-piece kit when he had 2 floor toms, 2 toms, and a snare and a kick drum, and then a couple of cymbals. After about I'd say in his second year where he was really, and he was still taking drum lessons too. He was advancing really, really quickly. He spent a lot of time on it. And again, you know, I'd go into the drum store with him. This is how it kind of worked out. I'd go check out the guitar section. We go check out the drum section, you know, in Steve's music, whatever. He goes, yeah, I says, I'm going to pick out some sticks. Okay, I'll be back in half an hour. You know what I mean? And stuff like that. But I learned, like, why are you doing it that way? Why are you doing it this way? Why, you know? And then I started picking up, well, you know, and then of course, while he's talking to the drum tech, I'm listening, right? So it's still interesting. So why didn't I buy drums early on? Well, I had the money to either buy drums or an electric guitar when I was 10. And I already started on a guitar, right? Or when I was 13. And I imagined myself, I wanted to play drums because, you know, like the Tommy Aldridge drum solo, you know, on, you know, the Randy Rhoads tribute was awesome, right? And I always like, yeehaw! You know, like that was a great solo. And I liked the drums, but I was like, the volume of them, the bulk of them, I settled on the guitar. It was just more practical to get the guitar. And I thought, oh, I'll get drums at a later date. I never did. And then jam nights, I'd jump on the drums for a song or two, you know, basic beats. And anyway, I'd play Scott's drum kit once in a while. I'd show him a couple of chords. Here, try my electric guitar. You know, I'll keep a beat, you whatever. And we do stuff like that. So that was my drumming summed up, right? But I learned a lot about drums. For example, what made a shitty drum kit and what made a good drum kit. And you would think, okay, well, if it's a cheap drum kit, it's automatically shitty. No, you can find DW set, the holy grail of drums. These things are like $6,000, you know, $5,000, $6,000. I think the starter kits, not the PDPs, but the like the DWs, like the main brand, they start at like $3,000, right? Why are they so expensive? The hardware on them is phenomenal. Everything's smooth. Like, these things are really good drums. To a novice drummer, not going to tell the difference. It's kind of like a Gibson versus an Epiphone. A lot of people won't notice the difference between the Gibson and the Epiphone when they're first starting to play. They might hear a little bit of a difference, but they won't realize the other things that make the difference, such as the quenched frets, the fretwork, stuff like that. You know what I mean? The better quality components. They won't understand that's what you're paying for. Yeah, you pay a lot for the name, but I'm just using that example. You could do it with Squier and Fender. You could do it with pretty much any line of any guitar manufacturer out there. Why there's different grade levels of guitar. Jackson, same thing. You get their you know, the JS series, and then you get the Dinky series, or the JS series, and then you get the you know, the upper end series. So you get a you know, the lower end series, and then I can't remember the name of the upper end series. Same with Ibanez, you got, like, you know, like the prestige grade, and then you've got the, you know, like the Geo grade. You know, like the Geo grade is a great guitar. It'll play great and everything like that. And anything you play on the Geo, you can play on the prestige, and anything you play on this prestige, you can pretty much play on the Geo. But however, the prestige is just going to do it a little bit better, a little bit smoother, a little bit, you know, whatever, because it's a pro guitar. Well, drum kits are the same. So, oh, you bought a set of Westburys. I had another friend that had a Westbury drum kit. And of course, same thing. He was just learning, whatever. I'd jump on the drum kit. So I did play the drums off and on other people's kits, whatever, enough to know that I can hold a beat, like I say, jam nights and all that. And that kit, he bought it new, and it was actually a pretty good kit once we put new skins on it. You know what I mean? It took us a long time to tune it up, and there was Scott, Pat, and I tuning up the, you know, this cheap drums. And Scott helped him pick that kit. And he says, okay, here's your budget. He goes, get this kit because this, and this. He goes, that kit's good because that, and that, but this one, it might suit you more. You know, the jazz kit versus the what you call it, you know, the rock kit, right? So I'm at that point now where I got to pick a kit, right? Now I've bought sticks years ago in anticipation either buying electric drums or acoustic drums. Now, electric drums would be nice because I can just hardwire right into my digital recording studio, play on a mono thing, and then it doesn't matter. I got stereo tracks, so I can, you know, get a good sound anyway. And that would be easy, but to some way. But if I want to play live, I got to buy an amp. You got to plug the things in. Acoustic drums, you can play quite a few venues before you, a fair sized venue before you actually have to, get the thing mic'd, right? You know what I mean? Like the drums are loud. And I thought, well, I've already got the mic. Okay, it's not the best mic, but I've already got a mic to, record the drums. Okay, so I'm already going as soon as I got the acoustic kit. I don't have to buy any extra cables, nothing. And they start off at about the $300 to $400, like for a proper kit, for an adult, not a kid kit, but a proper kit for an adult. They're going to start anywhere from $400 up, right? In that range, $400 to $600 is your beginner kit, and you could play pro on a beginner kit. Don't kid yourself. It's more about the skill than it is the nuance of the tone of the drums. Most people won't be able to pick it out. If the drums are tuned, a DW kit with untuned drums is not going to sound as good as the cheapest kit, with perfectly tuned drums. You know what I mean? Like it's same with guitars. You could have, a Les Paul, whether you like Les Pauls, it doesn't matter. But let's say you have a $7,000 Les Paul, and it's the best that Gibson has to offer for their line, and best pickups they got, best hardware, best everything, and it's out of tune. It's not going to sound as good as a cheap Epiphone Les Paul Jr. Perfectly in tune, played well. You know what I mean? The tonal qualities, would be better no matter what. But it's like a better tonal quality on an out of tune instrument is still a harsh thing to listen to, right? Regardless of the instrument. So there's that. I know I got to take my own advice sometimes when I'm playing guitar. Just start recording and it's like, it's slightly out of tune. Now I do it. And then I listen to it after. It's like, everybody's going to pick that out, but I do it anyway. I don't know why I do that, but I sometimes I do that. So I got to get out of that habit of doing that. So yeah, I'm caught between two kits. I love the dynamics of a jazz kit and the simplicity, typically a 4-piece kit. If you're gigging, a 4-piece kit is just, you're set up in 5 minutes and you're torn down in 5 minutes. Scott's kit with the cage was 45 minutes to set up, 45 minutes to tear down. He had 19 cymbals at the end of it. He would gig with 9. He didn't have a double bass drum or double bass, but he had the one kick drum, but he had a double bass pedal on it. Not that he didn't want the second drum there, but it's like the drum riser was just, or the drum cage was just, it was just so many cymbals. And then by the time we were playing 4 nights a week, and I think about the 3rd or 4th week that we did that is suddenly it was like we saw like the bass kit with a couple of cymbals, and then it got down to like, okay, it's now a 4-piece kit. We're gonna ditch a tom. It's good enough. But if there was a drum kit, that Pearl Expert might not have been the best sounding drum kit in the world, but if there was somebody that could get a sound out of that drum kit, it was him. I remember listening to him like through a 13,000 watt PA system. And I remember the sound tech, he always said the same thing about my Hammer Diablo guitar. He goes, dude, that is one of the best sounding electric guitars I've ever heard in my life on that stage. He goes, including the professional guys, the big bands that came in. And he goes, whatever you're doing, just keep doing it. He goes, it just sounded so good. And then Scott's drum kit, he goes, man, that's a good sounding drum kit. Because it was always perfectly tuned. He would tune it before every gig, or retune it or whatever. It really sounded good. It really sounded good. And, it was the icing on the cake, So the no-brainer would be, say, buy an old set of Pearl Exports. But the problem is whenever every used drum kit I've ever seen for sale has like broken hardware on it. Stuff that like, okay, yeah, you got the kit, but then you just bought somebody else's problems. The cymbal stands are done. The cymbals are cracked, or the cracks are starting, stuff like that. The rims are, dented and they're not fitting properly, stuff like that. The shells are starting to delaminate. So it's like you can get a really good deal, but then you got something that, you're going to buy it, and after about 2 months, you can't wait to upgrade it because it's just not doing it. So I used versus new, most of the better kits in the used range. Okay, if you know what you're looking for, you can get something really good. If you have no experience, take an experienced drummer with you. Most of the hardware is going to be rusted. You know what I mean? The thing's been sitting out in the garage or whatever, and then you look at inside the shells, and there's just like streams of rust from the moisture. Half the skins are all the skins are going to be worn out. So you've got, again, just that alone is, even if you bought a better kit, you already have to upgrade it as soon as you get it, which you'll upgrade a kit that's not going to be perfect, where you'd be better off to get a cheaper, newer kit that's perfect. It might not sound the best, but you can either upgrade it or take your time upgrading to something really good and use that perfect hardware to upgrade to the next drum kit. Another tip of advice I would do is, whatever brand you're going to go with, rather than trying to find mix match stuff that doesn't fit, a lot of it does, a lot of it's generic, but some of it doesn't, right? So if you like pearls, buy pearls. Right now, if money was no object, it would probably cost $2,000 to do it, and I don't have $2,000 to have on a drum kit. And for somebody just starting out, I would never recommend spending that much money on a drum kit, because if you don't stick with it, that's a lot of money to have sitting there. You know what I mean? And you're probably not going to recoup that money on the resale. Is the Mapex? They're a sea foam burst kind of thing. They're just gorgeous. And I want the 7-piece kit, but they only come in a shell form, so you don't get the hi-hats with it, you don't get the stands with it, you don't get the pedal with it, you don't get the throne with it, the seat, you don't get a snare with it. So it's just the drum kit itself. That's something you upgrade to, because that's going to take time. But I'm probably going to get there's 3 kits that I really like. One is just around the $400 mark. It's a 4-piece kit. And it's basically a compact kit. It's not a child's kit. It's not a junior kit, but it's like in between that. So it'd be a good kit to have in a room, because, you know, I'm going to be editing the sound when I record it anyway. And as I add more mics, I'm going to get different sounds anyway. So I don't need the biggest bass drum in the world. In fact, a smaller bass drum is kind of cool because of the space saving, right? And it's by Ludwig. That's the first one. And that one's also the cheapest one, because, you know, it has one cymbal, one hi-hat, a snare, a tom, a floor tom, and a kick drum. That's it. And it comes with a pair of sticks and a metronome. So perfect to start with, right? Oh, and the throne. You know, so you got everything you need for like 400 and some, under $500. You know, and some places were selling it for like just a little under $4. So I'm like, that's a no-brainer starter kit right there. You'll probably outgrow it, because it being a 4-piece kit, you're probably going to want to do more and add